Hello everyone, my name's Brittany and I am the owner and photographer at the Beautifully Broken Project, a project which is based around suicide and mental health awareness. I'm making this video today to kind of give people a better insight as to what I'm doing, why I'm trying to make a difference around suicide and mental health issues. So I'm going to go through a few different topics about how I do my project, what's really involved in it, and really the story behind why I decided to do what I'm doing. So hopefully anybody that's watching this and is maybe curious about my project and me as a photographer doing what I'm doing, then this will help you understand. So firstly, I'm 25 years old and I was born and raised in Fairlawn, New Jersey. I live in Dundalk, Ireland now. I've lived here 6 years, and I chose to do a suicide awareness project basically because I was affected firsthand by suicide. I lost my father. He took his own life in February of 2009 when I was only 17, and it struck me in a few different ways, basically because I found out 7 months after the fact that he had died that what happened had happened, which some people might say, how do you find out 7 months later? But I wasn't close with my father. He wasn't really in my upbringing. I wasn't close to his family. So it was only after I turned 18 that I decided to go looking for him, and that was how I found out, through a phone call. I'll show you a picture of my father. That's my father there. His name is James, and he was quite young when he passed away. For many reasons, I have learned to kind of cope with losing my father, but at some point, you go through all the different stages of grief when you lose somebody to suicide. For me, it went from shock to anger to, I'm not even sure really like what you'd say, what the stages were that I went through, but it was terrible. It took me a long time to really cope with what had happened. Um, I'm sure many people do. When you lose loved ones to suicide, you blame yourself. I blamed myself for an extremely long time after my father passed away. It's only in the past year, maybe, that I really, really stopped blaming myself, and I can cope with it. It's not that I agree with what he did or that I think it was right, but I understand why he did it. He had a lot of demons he faced, he had a hard life, so it doesn't make it right. I mean, I'm still lost without my dad, and I'm left with not many answers, and I'll never really get to know him, so that, in a sense, is heartbreaking on its own. I think that's one of the main reasons that I really decided to do this project. I really wanted to highlight what kind of things happen when you lose a loved one to suicide, and also on the other end of it, like what kind of issues go on with mental health. Because there's so many different things within mental health issues, like a lot of people wouldn't realize. And doing my project for the past couple of years, I've learned a lot. So this video is really to highlight some of them things and to let people know what I'm doing and why. So first, I'll say I started my project in 2014. It took me around 8 months to release the first set of images that I decided to release. It told the story at first of 5 people, and over the 8 months what I really did was I met with the people. They told me their stories, and it was a lot of photo taking and making sure everything was going to be right to release to everybody to see, because suicide and mental health, they're really difficult subjects to talk about, and the mind's a delicate thing, so you have to kind of always make sure you're taking those things into consideration when you're considering doing something like this. So it took me a long time to make sure that I had everything right and that I wasn't putting these people at risk. I didn't want them to feel like I was compromising their privacy doing what I was doing, so I wanted them to be comfortable enough to share with me their stories, their struggles, and the kind of basic everyday things that anybody should know about mental health issues. One thing I've learned is that a lot of people suffer in silence. You could walk past somebody in the street and they could be the happiest looking person in the world, and you literally don't know what kind of battle they're facing in life. It's really sad to see so many, especially young people, suffering and taking their own lives. I know that when you're growing up, it's so difficult because you kind of feel out of place until you kind of find where you're supposed to be or what you're supposed to do in the world. I went through that phase myself. And I mean, I'm 25 now. I still struggle day to day, but I kind of know what my purpose is now. I feel like doing what I'm doing is my purpose. I want to be the voice for the people that have either lost their battle to suicide or are facing a battle and they're suffering in silence. I want to be the voice for those people because I think I can make a difference. What I'll say next is how I take my photos. So basically, it's not just, okay, we're going to meet here and take the photo and it's going to be a 5-minute process. Yes, the actual photo bit of it does go quite quick, but it's a process as to picking where to get the photo, what way you want to take it, if the person's comfortable showing their face or not. So basically what I say to a person is, well, where is a place that you like to go when you're feeling upset, or what is a place that holds meaning to you? For myself, I went down to the Dundalk Navy Bank and I took my photo down there, and it was because I like to go down by the water or anywhere that's like beach-like or anything like that when I'm upset. So for me, that made sense. Um, Other people, I've taken photos in churches, I've taken photos in Dundalk town itself, I've taken photos in Belfast Castle, I've taken photos so many different places at the beach. So it's great because you kind of get an insight as to what the person does when they're feeling upset, and it makes the story more deep for the person that's reading it and looking at it. I also include a semicolon in all the photos. You might notice it when you originally look at the image, but if you look close enough, there is a semicolon in every single photo that's took in my project. Myself, I used 2 photos for my project for me. One's at the Navy Bank and one's of just my arm, where I have my semicolon tattoo and I have my dad's signature. And I actually placed his picture next to my arm and I used that picture as well. So it kind of just gives you an insight as to what the semicolon's really for. If you don't know what the semicolon's for, it's used where a sentence could have ended, but it didn't. So your life could have ended or somebody else's could have ended, but it didn't. They continue to go on. So it's basically your story and that's how it's portrayed. Um, Also with my project photos, the stories are, they can be really upsetting. Me as the photographer, I always try to connect to somebody on a level that they feel comfortable with me, and I've made a lot of friends along the way doing so. So basically, when they're telling me their story, I say to them, you tell me what you're comfortable telling me. Don't put things out there for the world to read that you're not going to be comfortable with. Say things that you think people can relate to and that you're comfortable with, so that, people realize, oh, she could be going through the same thing, he could be going through the same thing, I didn't know that. Everybody suffers differently. But one thing for sure is that a lot of people suffer, and they suffer in silence. And they do so because they think that they're alone in the battle, and they're not. Next, coming forward, telling your story, yes, it can be very difficult. It's a big process to get in touch with me and say, right, I want to be part of your project. How do I do so? You don't have to show your face in a photo. A lot of people would come to me and say, oh, I know somebody that wants to tell their story, but they're afraid that they have to show their face. It's not the story at all. You can completely shield your face. There's so many different ways that you can take a photo that you don't have to show your face. You can take it with somebody's shadow or their back to me, and it still makes a great, great image, and it tells a story. It's just about the fact that you're coming forward, telling your story, and getting it out there, because you never, never know. You never know who's going to see it. You don't know who it could help, and that is really the main thing. And also, if you're telling the story of the loved one who might have passed away, it's great to really keep their memory alive, and it's kind of comforting because you know that they didn't die in vain, that what happened is doing something positive because you could be saving somebody else's life. So that's another way that I kind of try to look at it, especially with having lost my father. It is very difficult. It's a very difficult subject to get into. It took me a long time to know that it was what I wanted to do. I had a lot of people along the way be like, are you sure that you want to get into that? It's going to be very stressful. It has been very stressful. It's not easy. It's definitely not a walk in the park, but I wouldn't change it for the world. I love what I do, and I won't stop because I know that I'm doing the right thing by people that are getting involved and by people that might need somebody to talk to. Another thing, my future goals, basically with my project, for anybody that's wondering, would be 5-10 year envision would be, I'd love to have a book. Someday I would love to have a book with all the photos and stories involved. Something similar to maybe the Humans of New York stories, if you've ever kind of looked into that book. Something similar along the lines of that. Um, I think that stuff like that can really be powerful. I don't want this to just be a social media thing. I want to make a difference. So I definitely think a book could be a good idea. Um, and I want people to get involved. I want it to be something that people know about and people talk about. So big goal would be to get it out there and get people involved and definitely make a difference in suicide awareness. For people that are interested, I have two Facebook pages. My ad page is Brittany Suicide Awareness Helen, and I have a like page which is titled The Beautifully Broken Project. And I also have an Instagram which is at The Beautifully Broken Project with the at symbol at the beginning. If anybody wants to check out the stories or is curious, just having a look into knowing what I'm doing and getting a better look at what I'm doing and reading some of the stories and maybe just getting involved in general. There's all different ways that you can get involved. It's not just a matter of, oh, I have to come forward and tell my story. I'm actually starting a new part of my project, which would be people getting their photo taken with a quote about suicide awareness. So that is a new part of my project that I'm doing. And that could be for anybody. It doesn't even have to be for people that are involved in suffering with mental health. It could be just with people that want to help me raise awareness, basically. Another thing I'd like to talk about before I get to the end is I've had people lately say to me, oh, your project's not going to make a difference. You know, it's about the government and the money, and it's not about that at all. If one person sees my project that's in the right place, maybe with the government or has something to do with a higher power, they could really see this and they could get the word out there, and that's ultimately what I want. It's about getting more and more people to see it, and that's how you raise awareness too. Social media is a great thing. You know, if people can post on Facebook about the silliest, littlest things, why can't they post on Facebook about suicide awareness? That is such a major thing, and it shouldn't be brushed under a carpet and just shoved in a corner and not talked about. It's a serious thing, and suicide's taking a lot of lives, and it's a lot of young people that are losing their life, and it's not fair. It's heartbreaking for the families. So that's really why I'm doing what I'm doing. There is people out there who will doubt me and say she's not going to make a difference. She's just doing it. She's wasting her time. But just know that that's not going to stop me. I'm going to keep doing what I'm doing, and I know in the end it'll be worth it because I know that if I change one person's life or just one person's day, then it was all worth it in the end. And I know that losing my dad wasn't in vain. I also lost two friends that I grew up with to suicide. Both were quite young, and it's sad because there's two families that are completely they're left without children, and it's hard to go on and it's hard to understand it because, like everything else, I mean, you get sicknesses and illnesses out there and people pass away and stuff, but suicide just comes so sudden. You don't know when it could happen or anything, so that's really why I'm trying to do what I'm doing. Lastly, I just want to say to anybody who wants to get involved, please do. Please watch this video. It'll take a couple minutes to watch it, but I promise it'll be well worth it. I want you guys to understand me as the person who's doing what I'm doing and know that I'm not just anybody. I am an ordinary person, but I am trying to make a difference. I'm not doing it to just put people's business out there. I'm doing it for the right reasons, and I'm trying to change somebody's life. There's so many people that need help out there and so many that won't admit that they need help. If you are suffering, don't be afraid to contact me on any of my pages, even if it's just to talk. You don't know how important it is to me to know that I could have helped somebody. Just to know everybody that I speak to, they really make a difference in my life, and I'm so happy to be doing what I'm doing, and all I want out of it is to know that I might have helped somebody. So I appreciate anybody who watches this video and takes the time out to understand that what I'm doing in my project, really. And if anybody has any questions, please contact me on my pages. Again, my ad page on Facebook is Brittany Suicide Awareness Helen, and my like page is The Beautifully Broken Project. Both my inboxes are always open on that, and Instagram, if you just put the at symbol and tag The Beautifully Broken Project, you'll find me on there too. So thank you to everybody who watched. I hope this helps you, and I hope to make more videos in future to kind of update everybody about what I'm doing and where my project's going. Thanks, everybody.